Sound matters. Be heard. Welcome to the podcast where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes tips to make your own show sound truly spectacular. This is Podtastic Audio.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing today? How is your podcast coming along? Do you even have a podcast? Well, don't you even worry about a little thing. I am Chris of the Chris and Christine Show podcast. You can find out all you want to know about that show at chrisandchristineshow.com. And don't you even worry, because I put a link to it into the show notes. Makes it very simple and easy to do. In fact, if you have a podcast and you're creating show notes for your podcast, I would suggest that maybe in the show notes, put links to different things like maybe your social media or maybe your website or maybe whatever. I wouldn't put links to other places to listen to it. I would just put links to places like a website where you can find all they want to know about you, because you never know. Somebody listens to your show and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. What's this guy about? Hey, what's this guy even look like? Maybe you can put a picture of yourself like on your website or whatever. It's really up to you. It's your show. Have fun. Do your show however you want to do it. But I am here to help you make sure that your audio sounds the best it possibly can without spending tons and tons of money on gear and junk you don't even need. Like, you do not need to buy an SM7B microphone attached to a brand new Rodecaster Pro 2. You don't need that starting out. I mean, you can start out with, I guess you can just use your phone. I wouldn't recommend doing that, but you literally, physically, you could just do that. Use your iPhone or Android phone. There's lots of different recording platform apps out there. I mean, I found one that I like, and I've used it a couple of times, where you can record directly into the app, and you can save it as a .wav file or a .mp3 or whatever you want to use. And you can literally and physically keep that file, and then you got to get it over to your computer so you can do some audio editing, of course, and then send it up to your media host, and you can have a podcast. Ta-da! Very simple and easy to use. Like, in fact, when I got started, I knew nothing about nothing. I knew nothing about any of this stuff. So the fact that if I knew I could do a podcast with my phone back then, I'm sure I would have tried it just to see what it sounded like, just to see if I could physically do it. I'm all about, let's try it and see if it works, and then we'll make modifications later. I know a lot of people will jump into their podcast game and they'll start off with the best equipment. Like, I got to spend thousands of dollars on camera rigs and lighting and, Rodecaster 2, of course, and of course the great microphones and all the great cameras and all that stuff. All that stuff is great, but you do not need any of that junk to get started. None of that at all. So just this week, we released an episode. Actually, today, as I record this episode, the Chris and Christine Show just released our latest episode, and we had a guest on the show. Now, we've had a guest on in a little while now because of scheduling conflicts. That's one thing about podcasting that really kind of sucks, I would say. It's probably the hardest thing for me to do. I mean, recording is easy, editing is easy, uploading, all that stuff's very easy to do. The hardest thing for me to do, or what I've experienced, is just getting the schedules lined up, especially if you have a co-host that is extremely busy, because I do it with Christine, and she's very busy working around the clock. Plus, she has a business she runs on the weekends and after work. I have to work my regular job, 12 hours a day, 4 days a week. Plus, I have the kids. Plus, I'm doing Podtastic Audio here. Plus, I'm trying to figure out guests for this show. Plus, I'm trying to figure out the guests for the Chris and Christine Show. Plus, I'm doing all the editing and all the stuff for the Chris and Christine Show, wrangling all the guests for everything like that too. So when it comes to getting a guest on your show, I always experienced the hardest thing was figuring out a good time to do the actual interview. What works best for my schedule, Christine's schedule, and whatever the guest schedule could possibly be. And because Christine was extremely busy for over the last few months, all of our guest interviews, all of them, we had to cancel all of them. Write an email, say we can't do it. We'll have to reschedule it later when we have our schedules all figured out. Because like I said, that's the hardest thing for us to do, is to figure out everybody's schedule. Now, I know people have asked me to be on their show, and the very first thing I always ask them is, do you have some kind of like scheduling app that we can like figure this stuff out instead of playing a guessing game? Like, oh, hey, what time zone are you in? Oh, does Thursday work? Does Wednesday work? Does Monday work? And you keep going down all these like rabbit holes. I've always recommended Calendly. In fact, I've got Calendly for the Chris and Christine show. Actually, Christine runs that department, but I have one for this show, for Podtastic Audio. I have a paid Calendly account. Now, the great thing about Calendly is that you do not have to pay for it to use it. They do have a free version. And on the free version, what you can do is you can schedule guests to come on your show, just one-time appointments. And it makes it very simple because what it basically does is you pick the times and days that you are available. Then you send that link out to your potential guest, and they only see the times that you're available. That's it. So they only can pick the times that you already pre-selected. So if you say you're only doing podcast interviews on, say, Tuesdays at 5 p.m., whatever your time is, then your guest is only going to see Tuesdays available in the time that you said 5 o'clock. Well, it doesn't matter what time they're in because it always corresponds to their own time zone. So if they're 3 hours behind, it'll say, 2 o'clock? It'd be like 2 o'clock their time is what the interview will say instead of 5 o'clock your time. It's very simple. I love Calendly. In fact, I'll probably toss in a link to it in the show notes here so you can get your own free version of it. I'm saying if you book guests for your show, it makes it super easy. It's totally free to do. I would check it out just for free. Why not, right? So like I said, we had a guest come on this show. We recorded him last week, and we actually did it in the portable studio. When I mean the portable studio, I mean we moved out of this office here because we had my stepson staying in this room here. So I had to take the Zoom PodTrack P4 and my MacBook and move it into the very noisy and very echoey design studio outside. So we did everything inside there. It's got great Wi-Fi, has its own Wi-Fi box in there. So everything's great. So our most recent guest was actually in physically a distance of 952 miles away from us. And he did not have the appropriate equipment. In fact, when we send over a Calendly link for anybody to join us, we do ask them a few questions because you can insert questions onto Calendly, which I think is fantastic. So one of the questions we ask is, what kind of gear do you have? Like, what are you coming to us on? Is it going to be on a phone? Is it going to be on a laptop? Do you have a full-on production studio equipment? I mean, what do you got, right? So we can figure out how to make adjustments on our end and figure out what we're dealing with when they come on the phone or on the line. So he says at first, I just have a computer and whatever the computer microphone is. And we're like, oh, great. I mean, we can make it work. We've had calls like that before. We've made them work. We've made them sound okay. They're not going to sound that great, but we'll do what we can. And then he says, I just ordered a Blue Yeti microphone. I'm like, great. So the day we have the interview, he literally just opened the box. It just got delivered. He just got it, right? So he's opening the thing up and he's trying to plug it in and figure it all out. So the very first time he used it was with us. And we all know the Blue Yeti microphone is notorious for being used incorrectly, especially from somebody that has never, ever like used a microphone, at least a Blue Yeti microphone, like at all. And those things, what they do is the Blue Yeti, it actually picks up a lot of room noise. It's very, very sensitive, extremely sensitive. I know most of the microphones, the ones that I use, they actually will pick up right in front of you, like right where the microphone is, where it picks up. The Blue Yeti seems to kind of do that too, but it also seems to pick up a lot of noise. Like you're hearing him lean back in his chair and the crinks of the desk and the chair and all that stuff. You hear all of that when he's being recorded on the microphone. So that being said, you're probably thinking that has got to be some of the worst audio you've ever received coming to your podcast, right? It's got to be horrible. I mean, you got a guy that's never used a Blue Yeti before. We're trying to figure out how to use it with him, tell him what buttons to push, what level to have the thing set to, all that great stuff. You got someone that he probably doesn't do a ton of like remote interviews. He probably does most of them, and they're probably all done through Zoom or something like that. And Zoom does a fairly good job of fixing all the audio. It does compress the audio. It does filter the audio. So you'd have a very kind of filtery sound to it. Like, the Zoom sound I'm talking about, you have that Zoom sound to it, which most people, it's probably great. And even if you're sitting like at a desk with a laptop microphone, you're sitting 4 feet from the microphone, it's going to have that really distant room sound. The further you get away from a microphone, the more of the room it's going to pick up additionally to you. It gives you kind of that booming kind of, not quite echo, but kind of like a distant sound to it. You really, I guess echo is maybe like the right word for it. You hear a little bit of that. So we get him on the call. We only use Clean Feed because Clean Feed delivers the finest audio end to end very quickly. And when I mean quickly, I'm talking about the second we hear him, we have a copy of it. It's nothing gets downloaded later. I don't have to wait for stuff later. It's instantaneously here. The second I get it, it's already here. That's why we love it. It sounds phenomenal. So when I'm really busy and I'm running all these different shows, I'm running to work and doing all these crazy things, I don't have time to wait for another 30, 40 minutes for the files to get uploaded and downloaded and all that other junk. So you're thinking the audio had been horrible, right? Well, I was able to get it through Clean Feed. In fact, we told him get close to the microphone, get it on the right settings. Once we got that dialed in, he was leaning in his chair, making some noises in the room. But I'm going to play you a sample of this guy's audio as he came directly to us from 952 miles away. First time using a Blue Yeti microphone with a little coaching from me. This is what it sounded like.
A big shift. Like if you're like, you know what it is? I hate my workplace or I hate my job and this is the wrong thing. And I did this career for a while and it's the wrong thing. Oh, it's kind of hard to change, Now you have a degree and certifications and specialties and all that stuff. And it's time for you to just kind of redo it. And I'm going to tell you, if that's what you got to do, then you got to do it. You don't have to do it overnight. You don't have to quit and walk away from your job because that's going to provide financial instability. But you got to start to figure out how to make those shifts to do something else that you're supposed to be doing.
Okay, yes, I know. You're kind of wondering, how did that come from a Blue Yeti 952 miles away remotely, not recorded locally? It got recorded on my computer and my end only. None of the audio went to his computer. It went to me. Everything got taped 952 miles away on a Blue Yeti. It sounded like he was right in the same room with us. It sounded that good. Now, how did I do that? Well, first things first, I made sure that when he has the Blue Yeti, I made sure that he had it on the correct signal to where the input signal for your voice got picked up on the front part and the front part only. Then the next thing I had him do was get close to the microphone because I could tell. I asked him, how far away are you from that microphone? Oh, like 3 feet. No, no, you should be 3 inches, not 3 feet. So I told him get really close to the microphone. I want you to talk right into the thing, like almost like it's like a phone you're talking to. So once he gets close to the microphone, I had that all set up. I had the gain level set up to the correct level. And then we recorded the entire thing. And of course, I like to use Levelator. So Levelator sounds fantastic. Everything runs through Levelator. Levelate him, levelate us, all that great stuff. Noise. I did a little noise reduction. I did a little bit of a light noise gate on all of us. I always do that anyways. And then I say, it needs a little something better. It needs a little something more. So I ran that through an entire interview. Me, him, her, all of us in one big final session. I ran that entire audio file through Descript. Now, when you do something like that with Descript Studio Sound, which sounds phenomenal, by the way, as you can tell, it sounds amazing. Well, the thing with Descript Studio Sound is that you have to specify how many speakers are in the conversation. Because if you have like a single mono track with, say, 3 people in there, and you dump that entire track like right into Descript Studio Sound, and you do not specify that you have 3 people in the conversation, it'll definitely cut people out. It'll cut people off and out and things like that. So you really have to tell it 3 people. And I didn't do it the first time I ran it through there. I didn't do that. And it cut off a few things. Like, that's weird. Why is it doing that? And then I realized, you got to pick 3 different people. So it really figures it out. Descript is quite amazing. Like, I haven't used it for its full potential. Like, the only thing I use Descript for is if a guest has like 1,000 different ums in the conversation, I can't sit there and take them all out. I'll run it through Descript because it does it for me, and it does a fairly good job. Sometimes it's a little quick cutting. It'll cut things a little quick. But then also, what I do is I also run it through the Studio Sound feature, which uses AI intelligence and uses some kind of filler thing, and it takes audio away and puts stuff in. It does an amazing job with the audio. And also now, I guess it figures out how many people are speaking. So it can figure out between me, her, and him. It figures out who is who, and it enhances everyone's audio. It makes it sound Amazing. So essentially, it's how I did it. I ran it all through the studio sound for the interview, and he came out sounding phenomenal. I was blown away that I was able to get that audio out of a Blue Yeti microphone from almost 1,000 miles away, being recorded only on my computer, on my end only, not on his end, on my end, over the internet. That's what it sounded like. That's the power of clean feed. That's the beauty of Levelator, and that is the amazing technology that they've built into Descript. Now, Descript is not free. It costs, I think I'm paying $15 a month, and I was just looking at that. So $15 a month, I get 10 hours of use of probably like sessions or audio files or even video files too. I guess it's 10 hours total. So whether it's a video file or an audio file, which I mostly use for our show anyways. But when it comes to the studio sound feature, the plan that I'm on, I'm only allowed to use studio sound for up to a 60-minute file. So basically, it can't be longer than an hour, the file that I put in there. It'll only be 60 minutes. Now, the next plan above that, which I probably will graduate to once I do some audio editing for others, I'll probably use that. It's $30 a month, and that gives you unlimited like studio sound. You can use it as much as you want. But it does give you, I believe, is it maybe 20 or 30 hours of use a month or so? It's quite a bit amount of time you get to use. I can see it be enough to use for your own show and then editing, say, other shows too. You'd probably be fine to do all that stuff. So I highly recommend using Descript's studio sound feature if you really want to get rid of room echo or any kind of background noise or anything like that in there and make the audio still sound phenomenal. It'll do that. In fact, it also does other tricks like leveling and compressing. It does stuff like that too. I was just using it just for their studio sound feature, but like I said, you can play with it and do video or do whatever you want with it. It does make editing very easy. It's all AI technology. And I know that sometimes it does get things a little wonky and it will chop off words, you know, especially with the cutting. We cut out all the ums and all the filler words type stuff. It sometimes will get too close and cut things off. So it sounds a little choppy, a little robotic at times, but it's getting better. It's gotten a lot better since it probably first started. So I recommend using it. I think it's great. I'm on the $15 plan. And with $15 plan, you get to play with the studio sound. In fact, I think they said you can use the studio sound for free just to try it out, like a sample, like on some website page, I believe it was. I saw that where it says drop in your audio file that's smaller than 25 megabytes, and we'll give you a sample of what it could sound like running it through the Descript Studio Sound. If you want a quick and easy way to make sure that your audio sounds phenomenal, especially if you have a guest or even yourself that has a room that's really echoey, or your guest has got a lot of echo, or maybe the guest is coming to you on like a laptop microphone or whatever it is, you know, run it through Descript Studio Sound and it'll do a phenomenal job. Basically, there should be no excuse these days to have horrible audio. I know people do, especially when they're starting out and they're brand new. Because when you're brand new, like you don't know anything. Like you don't know, what microphone to use. Like you don't know what, end of a microphone to use or plug it into what and what this and that. You don't know any of this stuff. So what you got to do is listen with your ears. And if it sounds good to you, then it sounds good to you and just run with it. It doesn't have to be world-class, like unbelievable, ran in a multi-million-dollar studio sound. It doesn't have to do that. It just has to be loud enough to where everybody can hear everything that's happening and it's not distracting. Like if you have an audio track with a dog barking and every single time a person's talking, there's a dog barking, fire trucks running by, that's a little distracting from what they're actually saying because you're trying to listen to what they're saying. Oh, that's interesting. And all of a sudden something happens in the background. Like, what is that going on? It kind of throws you off. So basically, try to get it as clean as possible you possibly can, but it does not have to be perfect. Just get it good. It's good enough for you is good enough. So if you have any other questions or questions you want to reach out to me, you can always email me at podtasticaudio@gmail.com. In fact, you go to my website, which is podtasticaudio.com. And I got information on all kinds of stuff over there. So you can hit me up over there. I'm on social media, all the great, fantastic stuff. But everything you want to know is at podtasticaudio.com. And there will be a link to that into the show notes today. And you keep on making sure you have fantastic audio for your amazing podcast. And I'll catch you next time.